Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here, and today I've got 9.1 PTR Sims for Affliction, Demonology, and Destruction for you guys to take a look at. Now, I actually wasn't aware that any of these APLs or Sims or whatever were updated because this is the very first build of PTR, but we messed with it a little bit earlier on stream, and indeed they have been. And when we look at the actual damage breakdown of each Sim, it does indeed show the 10% Chaos Bolt buff, the Rapture nerf, the Agony buff. You can see where the buffs and nerfs are actually made. So I wanted to run some Sims today and apply them in 1 target, 2 target, 3 target, a handful of different settings, and see how things look for Destro Demo. Now, in the most recent video that I put out, we talked a bit about Demonology being pretty good single target, Destro being good in 2 target, and Affliction getting nerfed pretty substantially in single target, but maybe being better in like 3+ target with its Agony buff, Writhe and Agony, and just the Council Cleave damage profile that it brings. So I was curious to see what things looked like, and the results were actually pretty impressive, pretty cool to say the least. Now, I do think there'll be a lot of changes coming to PTR still. This is the very first build, and I actually assume we get another build today, which we did not, hopefully tomorrow. So keep all that in mind when looking at these numbers, but nonetheless, they're fun to look at just in general. Now, if you guys are interested in acquiring any weak auras, profiles, or add-ons you see here, you can grab them all for free off my Twitch. If you want to swing by, hang out, ask any questions anytime, feel free to do so. Thank you again so much to my patrons for all support as well. If you guys are interested, I will indeed be creating a 9.1 Warlock spreadsheet very similar to the 9.0 one that I created in, well, beta and 9.0. The tier 3 Felguard rank or higher of my Patreon does indeed get early access to that. If you're interested, take a look. And thank you again, dudes, for all support just in general. I really do appreciate it. With all that being said, let's get into the video and talk about some AF changes. Rather than Agony versus Siphon life, let's try and debunk that quickly. So one of the big questions that I personally had, and one that I got a lot over the first few days of beta, was how is Writhe and Agony going to stack up now compared to Siphon life in the way that it is in 9.0? Rapture was nerfed by roughly 18%. Obviously, Focused Malignancy was nerfed too, which hurts a bit in single target, but it's important to keep in mind that Agony itself was buffed by 20%. Rather than Agony, the actual talent was changed in Shadowlands to now go to 18 stacks instead of 15 and start at 4. So a 20% buff to Agony's damage and the scaling of Writhe and Agony, it makes things, it has the potential to change things up a good bit. Now, Siphon itself is still dealing the same amount of damage, but seeing as how Rapture is dealing less on its own and Malignancy was nerfed, it sort of does theoretically devalue Siphon life in a single target, maybe even 2, 3+ target setting a bit. So that's the first thing that I wanted to take a look at in these Sims. Now, I will have a link to all these Sims down below if you guys want to look at them. They do indeed, they're labeled, if they're not labeled yellow like this, these are the PTR Sims. If they're not labeled yellow with PTR, they are live Sims that I just use as like general templates for what we have now, comparing them to what we get on PTR. Now, just look really quickly here as well. These Sims all are indeed playing Triple Potency Conduits. You can see if we go down here to the Siphon life version, spoilers ahead. Corrupting Leer, Malignancy, and Cold Embrace are the ones we played for Affliction. You can see here, Malignancy has indeed been nerfed to 11% from 26 at eye level to 26 as well. So going back to this is the current retail Sim for my Warlock as Affliction. I'm basically a 6700 Sim. Writhe is about 311 or so DPS below that, which is what we've seen for the most part of 9.1 or 9.0. It's what we've seen. Everything's good. What we expected to see in this Sim. Getting into the 9.1 Sims though, I was personally hoping that Writhe would pull ahead. It's not the case. Writhe gains, I don't know, about 140 or so DPS. It sort of, I guess, gains. It sort of closes the gap a bit. Unfortunately, well, fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to spin it, Siphon life still is indeed your best choice here. It's ahead by about 2.6% compared to, well, 4.6. So it gains about, well, 2%. Now, this is indeed my number on retail once again. This is on PTR with Triple Potency Conduits. Without this, it was about, I believe, 6,250. Yeah, we're losing. I lost personally myself going from live to PTR 450 DPS. It was about a 7.3% overall nerf to my character, using my gear, playing my whatever I have, which is the more or less BIS gear for Affliction at this point. About a 7% overall nerf. This, once again, is with a 3rd potency conduit taken into account. So the nerf doesn't seem that bad, but you can't really compare something with 3 potencies to something with 2 potencies because it just sort of makes things a bit off, a bit awkward in itself. TLDR, Siphon Life is still better by a small margin when it comes to single target. But the question then is, how does it look in 2-target? So when it comes to these 2-minute or 2-boss sims here, we've known that Siphon for the most part has been still your go-to de facto dot, even though AC and Writhe, they're sort of, I guess, meant to be played in these settings just because of how strong Rapture is. Once again, Rapture's been nerfed. Even Focus Malignancy's been nerfed. We have the Agony buff. So looking at the baseline 2-target sim for retail right now, Writhe's about 327 DPS below Siphon Life for me, running my own gear. Looking at a PTR though, it's about 196 DPS below Siphon. So you can see once again the gap's been closed. It's about a 2.2 DPS loss versus 3.7, which is actually, I mean, it's a relatively substantial gain when it comes to getting into the 3-target setting though. And this is what we talked about in the last video when we said, hey, Demonology is looking to be pretty good single target. Destro, well, might not be bad 2-target. How does AF look in 3-target council based damage? This is a sim from retail right now with Writhe versus Siphon Life. Just to confirm, this is still retail. Once again, I'll have a link to everything down below. Here is the actual sim. You can see Writhe still has 2 potencies, Focus Malignancy, Cold Embrace. There's no corrupting leer built into here. Also, the PTR one is labeled yellow. The PTR sim, Writhe is about 143 DPS better than Siphon Life, which, I mean, in a 3-target setting, you're probably not going to be able to maintain your Agony, your Corruption, your Siphon, your UA, your PS, your Soul Rot, and get all that Rapture value in. Let's just completely forget about Shadow's Embrace at this point. It's going to be rough. But you can see a bit of an actual gain here, about 20 DPS, give or take. The really interesting thing, though, is that when you get into the 4-target sims, now, it's really hard to sim for Mythic Plus. Dungeon-sized sims really aren't the way to go, I feel, personally, in my opinion. So, and I think depending on most everybody else. So we've done some 4-target 1-minute sims to try and replicate like a 4-target trash pack in Mythic Plus. When you get into these, here it is. This is the current 4-target patchwork 4 boss targets 1-minute sim for live right now. You're looking at Siphon Life, Writhe here, 16786, about 170 DPS loss, give or take. Here it is when it comes to PTR. Writhe is ahead by about 132 DPS by about 0.8% versus being behind by about 1%. But the big thing here is that you're playing corrupting leer with this sim because this is PTR. You have triple potency conduit. So it's interesting to see. I mean, because we are simming both Siphon and Writhe here. So Writhe's number one gaining value, but also having corrupting there gives you even more of a value gain just in general when it comes to these kind of settings, right? Because you have leer, malignancy, and cold embrace like slotted in at this point. We probably play rolling agony maybe, I don't even know, but either way you have leer in here for a bit more of that extra damage profile. Now looking at how this is scaling in a 1-target setting for 4 boss targets with Writhe over SL being about 132 DPS, this is nowhere near as impactful as 132 DPS is in a single target sim. But going all the way back to the single target sim, with Writhe being about 170 DPS loss, give or take, in pure single target for AF right now, and then going back to this sim, I'm half wondering if Writhe is going to be like the de facto shift to where you want to be in Mythic Plus. Obviously you can still play AC. We did not sim with AC here, nothing really changed with it. AC is still solid, it's still fine, but I'm wondering how much value this actually adds to Writhe in Mythic Plus, because I'm personally, I enjoy the Writhe playstyle, and while Siphon Life does bring an extra, it packs a punch, brings a bit of a wallet to Mythic Plus, you've got the extra Haunt SL damage, the extra Rapture damage on Prideful adds, but Prideful's gone number 1, and yes, you have that insane single target tyrannical damage profile, but Rapture's nerfed. You're not going to have that single target damage anymore. I think you might end up seeing a shift to Writhe, quite possibly AC still, just for simplicity's sake, and on certain weeks with like Wrath Consumption Legendary, but just in general, Writhe has gained a decent bit of value when it comes to these 3-4+ target settings, which is what we talked about a couple days ago. Second question here. People have been wondering a lot about Sacrolash because of the 10% additional damage buff that it's gotten. They removed the baseline slow effect, but added on 10% more damage. If you think back to Legion with Affliction, yeah, we had 2 legendaries possible at once, but on a lot of like 2+ target fights, even on like Fellhounds of Sargeras, I believe is what it's called, and Taurus, you still wore your Corruption Legendary because of the bonus damage that it brought to those actual settings. And on like crazy ad fights like Antor and High Command, it was just good in the first place. But I wanted to run these sims to sort of see where it landed. So we ran Synergy SL, Sacrolash SL, and Synergy Sac AC. This is the actual just live sim. what we have on retail right now, playing the older version of Sacrolash, the 15%. I can show you once again here just to confirm. Sacrolash being 15% with the actual slow effect. If we put it in a PTR sim, this is also a 2-boss sim. 2 boss 5 minutes. PTR sim. Not a whole lot really changes. You still have Synergy SL followed by Sacrolash SL here. You will see with Synergy and Sacrolash AC though that the gap is sort of closed here. You're looking at about a 188 DPS difference here versus 300. So you can see a bit of a power gain there, but I mean it's going to be because of just the baseline damage increase on actual, well, Sacrolash. Synergy is just still strong. And Siphon Life just is still strong in these 2 target settings, which we also saw, well, you know, a little bit ago here, running the just patchwork 2 target sims without Sacrolash taken into account. Now, when it comes to the 3 target sims, though, you'll notice here Sacrolash SL is about a 470 DPS difference between SL and Synergy AC here. When you go to 3 targets, that gap is closed tremendously. You're looking at Sacrolash SL being about 45 DPS better than Synergy AC, which is very different from before. You're looking at about a 500 DPS difference. That's because 3 targets maintaining SL, the extra actual AC value, extra raptures, whatever, what have you, AC starts to pull ahead. Once again, we've known that for a while, looking at the old Sims back here, comparing in 3 targets, wherever it was here, comparing Writhe to SL. SL just starts to fall off a bit when it comes to these 3 target Sims. Either way, much less disparity when it comes to the actual damage here. But I was really curious at the 4 target mark if Sacrolash would end up pulling ahead of Synergy Siphon Life, just because of the raw power level that it brings. And keep in mind, these are PTR sims, so Siphon Life has a bit more value added to it, arguably due to having Corrupting Leer, more extensions, shorter Dark Layers, whatever have you. Be sure to keep that in mind. Going to 4 targets here, you'll see Synergy AC does jump Sacrolash SL, which, you know, to me makes sense. It's still about 450 DPS off the top slot, but I mean, it's about 4.1 versus 2.8. I'm still a little surprised that SL's holding this high, but at the same time, the big thing we wanted to see here was like how strong Sacrolash with AC was, and unfortunately across all 4 of these, it just hasn't really made a very substantial jump here in a 2 target, 3 target, 4 target setting. Once again, factoring in the Corrupting Leer extra effects with SL is probably going to add a little more value than compared to AC, and I would assume Writhe somewhere in the middle here. But TLDR, the Sacrolash buff is nice, but it's not really not as impressive as I thought it would be. With all the AF combination and things being done though, let's look at just the AF versus Destro versus Demo Sims. This is what I really want to see. So remember a few days ago when I put that video out saying, hey, maybe Demo is your best single target build, Destro is your best 2 target, and AF might be your best 3 target. Well, taking a look at the actual Demo Sims here, or I'm sorry, the general single target Sims here, well, there you have it. Demonology sitting at about 6,825 DPS. The next closest being Destro, Roaring Blaze, Dark Soul. Now these actually indicate what conduits we're playing. This is Born of Blood, Fell Commando, Tyrant Soul, Ashen Remains, Nia's Tools, Burrs, and the Infernal one, whatever it's called. Infernal Brand, there you go, that weird one, there you go. AF is playing Cold Embrace, Focus Malignancy, and Corrupting Leer. Now with Corrupting Leer and actual like duration reductions, kill time is sort of important, but at the same time, this is playing Wilfred's. This is playing Wilfred's, Destro's playing Cinders, and AF is indeed playing Synergy. So you can sort of make a case for more than just AF being there. We've known Demonology single target DPS strong, and you can see it here. I don't think it's a crazy OP, incredibly strong or anything like that, but I do think Demonology benefits the most. We've been saying from Triple Potency Conduits. Born of Blood is just universally good. This is your Ashen Remains. This is your Focus Malignancy. Fell Commando is just straight up good if you're playing Demonic Strength, and if you're not playing Demonic Strength, then you go play Dreadlash with Carnivorous Stalkers, and then you've got Tyrant Soul, which is just good. And the big thing is it helps with the consistency outside of your tyrants. You can see the spike here basically every tyrant. You can see it. This is like small tyrant, or big tyrant, small, big one, Grimoire Vile Fiend, just Vile Fiend, Grimoire Vile Fiend. You can see it, but that consistency is there, or I guess more consistency than we had before because of Tyrant Soul being a conduit and giving you that actual throughput. This is more or less what I expected from Destro 2. Roaring Blaze, Dark Soul, Roaring Blaze, CDF. You've got Reign of Chaos, Dark Soul, and Reign of Chaos, CDF down here. I am a little saddened to see AF this low. It's taken a substantial hit. It's about a 5% DPS loss over Demonology, but it's important to keep in mind that all buffs and nerfs, all class tuning is, it all depends on wherever it's all relative. It all depends on where other classes land. They can be buffed, other classes can be buffed, other classes can be nerfed, other specs can be buffed or nerfed for the same class. It all depends on where the final tuning of every class lands. Yeah, Shadow Priest is doing a lot of single target damage right now. Yeah, Boomkins are probably still pretty decent from what I've heard. Monks look pretty solid too, but Shadow Priest hasn't really been touched much. And the nerf they got, people have said, hey, yeah, it got nerfed, but they're still pretty insane. There's still months, weeks, months, let's be real here, of PTR left for these things to all change. So it's cool to see Demonology up top here in the single target sims. Destros are actually relatively close, about I guess a 3% drop off in damage, but it's still there, you know. And I will say, I did not run every legendary combination for each spec. If you want to, the links are down below, you can do it yourself. This is indeed playing the Demonology Wilfred's APL, because if you don't play it, Demonology is terrible because it hasn't been updated. So this is indeed playing that APL. There's a link to it in the Demonology section of my Discord. If you want to swing by and grab it, you can put it in there for yourself. 2 target sims though. Where's Demo? Where's Demo? In the toilet. Nice. Yeah. 2 target sims. It's like we said before, Demo can't compete in 2 target. It just can't. I mean, it's a single target base spec with like stat cleave. If you have 2 targets that are spread apart, which is not even in this sim, it can't compete. And even if it could, in a sense, it's not going to compete with Destro. Destro playing Reign of Chaos and Dark Soul Instability is actually a tiny bit higher here than Destro playing Roaring Blaze and Dark Soul Instability, which is really interesting. Now, in a 2 target sim, these ads are basically stacked. You're going to get a decent bit of CDF cleave here, so you can sort of like remove this, I suppose, or devalue CDF a bit more. It's basically Destro Reign of Chaos Dark Soul and Destro Roaring Blaze Dark Soul. Now, I'm going to be honest, I wouldn't fault you for playing either here. They're both, well, I mean, within 1% of each other. Not that big of a deal. Reign of Chaos is most likely going to bring you more shard gen, more shards during your Infernal window, more Havoc dumps, more Chaos Bolt dumps, whatever, what have you. Roaring Blaze is going to bring a bit more consistency outside of that actual Infernal window. It's going to bring more consistent damage. Your Incinerates are going to hit a little harder. You might not have as many bolts, but when your Incinerates are hitting harder, there you go. And you're going to be going into your Havoc window actually outside of that. Now listen, we could have also simmed Duplicitous Havoc here. We just didn't. I didn't want to go in and change the APL a million times because Destro's already #1 here. We know that. Duplicitous Havoc will indeed help even more with that if you end up playing the Conduit itself. Look at Affliction here though. 9,200 roughly. Affliction City at 8,930. A pretty substantial gain from where it was before. I mean, it was what, a 5% DPS loss before? Now it's looking at about 3%, give or take. 3 target. My man. My man. It puts a smile on your face, doesn't it? Oh yeah, but how many 3 target permanent fights, ad base, boss base fights, whatever, do you encounter in a raid? AF does indeed pull ahead in the 3 target sims. This is playing the pure single target build. Once again, you can go in there, mess with Writhe and Agony, mess with AC, whatever you want. Playing Cold Embrace, Focus Malignancy, and Corrupting Leer. Corrupting Leer also gains a decent bit of value in these 3+ target settings, so you're gaining value from extra sources here, or multiple sources. The Agony buff, the Corrupting Leer effect with actual other conduits being in the first place. But AF does pull ahead of Destro by a tiny bit here in 3 target, because Destro can't really do a whole lot to 3 sustained targets. It'll do a good bit to 2. You can keep an Immolate rolling on 1, but you can't really hit 3 crazy amount. Destro Reign of Chaos Dark Soul, I presume would be higher here due to the Reign of Chaos Infernal Cleave. It is indeed. Here's CDF, Reign of Chaos, here's Roaring Blaze, CDF, and all that other stuff here. Demonology just sort of down here, but we knew this would be down here. So it's actually really cool to see all of these sims. Demonology being your #1 single target spec by a semi-substantial bit. Destro being your 2 target, and Affliction being your 3 target. Now, there's going to be a lot of changes coming to PTR still. I don't expect this to make it live. Let's be honest here. I said this earlier. Every single tier that Demonology looks like it might be the play, like not because something broken going on, not because of explosive potential, not because of haste double dipping or something crazy going on. We're not even talking about Demo stamina scaling here. It's just regular Demo. Every tier Demo feels like it's going to be just good, maybe a spec in a few fights. It's funny, I always end up zoning in as AF and playing AF in those fights for whatever reason. I don't know. It feels like they nerf AF and PTR every time. Then, oh yeah, AF's bad, buff it week before it goes live, and you just play AF again. So we'll see where it goes. At this current point in time, Demo looks like your best single target option. Destro in 2 and AF in 3, but honestly, depending on the fight, like I don't know where you're going to encounter these permanent 3 target scenarios very much. looks like a pretty big Destro demo tier. But then again, Blizzard can't go with half being this bad. You can't do it. Can't do it. But yeah, that's about it. I hope this video helped clarify the current state of Destro Demo and AF on PTR. It's really cool to actually see the APLs and I guess just the Sims updated. I didn't think they would be for PTR this early on, but it's pretty cool to see. I'm happy to see Demo as our best single target spec at this point in time. Destro being 2-target makes a lot of sense, and not being that far off our best single target spec either is also pretty cool. And AF gaining value in these 3+ target settings with like Writhe or I don't know, weird Siphon life corrupting layer play. It's also pretty cool too, but I'm curious to see where Blizzard wants to bring all the tuning, because, well, it's Blizzard and buffs and nerfs happen up until the last day before release, apparently. So let me know what you guys think of the Sims and just the general output of all 3 specs in the comment section below. If you guys would like any week wars or anything you've seen here, feel free to swing by my Twitch. They're all for free, complimentary there for you guys as well. Huge shout out, thank you so much to my patrons. Thank you so much for the support. I will indeed once again be creating a 9.1 Warlock spreadsheet ahead of public release on my Patreon. The tier 3 Felgar rank or higher gets early access to that if you're interested in that. If you guys want to see more content, it helps support the channel, be sure to smash the like and subscribe buttons below. It helps out a lot. Thanks again, dudes, and I'll catch you all again soon on stream. Peace.